president behaves rhetorically.
Well, there are two different parts of that. One is the tone set by the president, which by any reasonable analysis is terrible, particularly when it applies to race relations. The other is the perception somehow that he's winning this battle for hearts and minds, which I, for one, do not believe. The encouraging thing about what we're seeing, Chris, there's all kinds of encouraging things. What ABC and Disney did today, frankly, it surprised me almost to the point of shocking me. They made a big money decision. It cost them a lot of money. They decided the right thing. They decided it quickly. They decided against their own monetary interest. And I don't think you can give enough credit to the corporate leadership, Iger, Sherwood, Ms. Dungy, all of those people. And this indicates to me that this perception that somehow Trump is winning the battle for it's okay to say what you want. I don't think he is. Now, maybe that's just a result of my optimism, but I don't think he is. And I think we may look back on this day, Chris, as another, if not turning point, part of some wide turning points that we've seen. You know, back in the late 50s and early 60s, we had young people leading the sit-ins and the freedom rides. We had young people who were dominant in large numbers following Dr. Martin Luther King. More recently, on the issue of gun violence, we've had what happened with the Parkland School in Florida, that young Americans are not buying into this business of racism at all. Now, I don't believe, and I don't think most white Americans believe, that the majority of Americans are racist. But we can't take any comfort in that because we obviously have deep and abiding problems with what you have called, and I compliment Msnbc for this special tonight about everyday racism. We obviously have some deep and abiding problems. But once again, I would say, Chris, we learn from our history that we go through these periods. The civil rights movement in the late 50s and early 60s was a period. We've seen several of these periods. I think this may be part of a turning point, what happened today.
It's interesting you note the sort of the swiftness of the decision, the fact that it happened against its monetary interest, the network, and to Joy's point about the fact there was a market for this. You know, I wonder what you think about the fact that, look, I mean, there was all this talk about Roseanne representing authentically a group of Americans that feel unrepresented in pop culture. But in some ways, it seems this is sort of the other side of that, in that she really is authentically one of the people that she claims she is on the show.
Well, exactly. I think that many people thought, well, she's just an actress and she's acting the part on the show. That's not who she really is, how she really is. I don't know Roseanne Barr. I don't know what her personality is in person. However, it turns out, just as you say, that the things she was saying in the program, what she reflected in the program, where she is in terms of politics, ideology, and particularly in race relations, is pretty much who she turned out to be. And one important thing about this day, Chris, and I think we have to point out that this was a teaching moment, as Valerie Jarrett said and says on the recorded program that follows this one. This is a teaching moment. Actions and words have their consequences. And Roseanne Barr had obviously reached the point where she thought that she was bulletproof because she was so successful, particularly with this new program. Well, boom, she says the wrong thing, and awful things, and there's a quick and important consequence to pay for that. That is a very important teaching moment.
Final question here. Just immediate thoughts about whether the president would say anything about this. Obviously, he talked about calling her up, and she kind of had a little bit of the record that she has about her public statements even back then. But there's a real question in my mind about whether you expect to see the president weigh in on this. What do you think?
Well, I don't think. I think given his record on the basis of what he said, and let's remember, he praised Roseanne Barr, praised her to high heaven. You ran some of the clips as you opened the program when she was seemingly on top, having the great rating success and all that. I find it, again, a very instructive moment that now he has not denounced what she said. He hasn't said this is wrong. He doesn't say, he hasn't said anything so far. We'll see later on as the evening goes along, as you know, and his record demonstrates President Trump is pretty good about trying to go with the wind. But thus far, I think it's very instructive about who he is, what he stands for, but he hasn't said anything. And there's one other point, Chris, that I can't leave without saying. There was talk, there always is talk about, well, President Trump sets the tone and how influential he is. No president is more powerful than the country as a whole. And the as a whole, particularly the young people in the country, are moving in the opposite direction from Donald Trump on race as well as some other things, but most importantly on race.
It's a great point. I mean, the president's one person, and it's a big country, and citizens ultimately control the destiny of the nation. Dan Rather, thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you, Chris.
Next, new reporting that special counsel Robert Mueller is looking into a previously unreported meeting between the president and Attorney General Jeff Sessions